I think we're ready. Otherwise, is you guys ready? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and you want to give Jill a thumbs up? Tell her we're ready to go. Everyone may be seated. And I think we're ready for cross-examination. Mr. Los? Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon.
Lieutenant, now what role would you say that you had with the start of this investigation? Would you say you were in charge of the scene?
Yes,
Okay. Were you also in charge of the investigation?
the initial, and then it was passed on to the investigations.
Okay. And at what point was that passed on?
After the victim had been removed from the apartment, shortly thereafter, I made a phone call to the detective sergeant, Mike Manthorn, who then contacted detectives to come in to start their investigation.
Okay. So maybe sometime around 10 o'clock that evening, your part was wrapping up?
I was still in charge of the scene, but for the extended investigation, that's when I was making the phone call to bring them in to then continue the ongoing investigation from the initial scene moving forward.
All right. So let's kind of jump back to when you first entered the apartment. I believe you testified that when the door was open, you could see Jeffrey Lee.
Yes,
Okay, did Mr. Lee have any drinks or anything in his hand?
he was holding a bottle of beer.
Now, did he listen to what you were telling him?
No,
Did you have to actually get physical with him to remove him from the apartment?
yes,
Was he being somewhat loud?
yes, he was.
Did he appear upset to you?
Yes,
agitated,
Yes.
maybe even a little worried?
I don't know about worried. He just didn't want me to remove him from the apartment.
Okay. All right. Were you ever able to figure out why he didn't want you to remove him from the apartment?
No, I did not talk to him in depth.
Okay. All right. Now with Mr. Parker III, was he yelling?
No,
Did he not listen to any instruction you gave him?
I don't know that it was that he was not listening to me. When I told him to come out of the bathroom, I had pulled the door some and it was a tight space. But I also reached and grabbed his arm as he brought it out and pulled him out and then out of the apartment. And
So
when
would
I
it
got
be
him,
fair to say
yeah.
that you really didn't give him much chance to whether he was going to listen or not?
that'd probably be accurate.
Okay. So how long do you think it took you from when that door first got open to the apartment until you had both of the non-victims out of the apartment?
Maybe up to 2 minutes at the most.
So 2 minutes or less?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, after that initial scene of you being in charge of that, did you have anything else to do with this case going forward?
Not more than what I testified earlier, what I did.
Okay, so after February 24th, 25th, would it be fair to say you're pretty much done with this case?
Yes.
Okay, and I believe that's all I have for you. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Any redirect, Mr. Loomis?
Lieutenant, the defendant gave you no indication that he was in the bathroom, did he?
No.
Do you believe he was hiding in the bathroom from you?
I'm not sure what he was doing. As I was very actively trying to get Jeffrey Lee out and clearing the apartment, there was the opportunity to also clear out of the bathroom, which did not occur. And as I mentioned before, the bathroom light was off, so it was mostly dark inside that bathroom area. Just a light from the apartment that would allow me to see there was movement inside the bathroom behind that partially open door.
Thank you, Lieutenant. No further questions at this
Anything
time.
else, Mr. Lopes?
Yes, just on that, so officer, if he would have been hiding prior to yourself and Officer Steele arriving, were there any officers there yet?
No,
So he could have just walked away prior to,
prior to our arrival.
Yeah.
Yes,
and so this was to your knowledge, a call from inside the apartment. A 911 call.
is a call from Nathaniel Parker Jr. I don't know where he was when he made that phone call.
Okay. But anytime between when that phone call was made and when you arrived, he could have just simply walked away.
He could have, but I also don't know who knew that the 911 call was made either.
But from what you know, he could have just walked away.
As a possibility, yes. Yes.
Would there have been anything physically stopping him?
No,
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Loomis, any follow-up?
Remind me again, Lieutenant, how long it took you to respond to that call?
I came from the station up Douglas Street to 11th Street and then got to the door, and I would say it probably was less than a minute or up to a minute from the time I got in my car till I got to the front door of the building.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right. You're excused, Lieutenant. Thank you. State's next witness.
The state calls Mark Smith.
No, I have a draft. I don't know when I can do it. I'll go up and see and figure it out.
Mark, you spelling your first name M-A-R?
Correct. Yeah, okay, for the check. Just go ahead and have a seat first, yeah. I don't know, I'm not sure what happened here to cause me to lose my quad screen, so, oh, there we go, let's see if that helps. I don't know where that comes from, but. Sorry, it somehow got another window in front of mine. We did have some folks that were interested in watching this that are remote, and that's why I'm doing this and why we are actually live streaming this on YouTube. So it's testing the abilities that I have with regard to technology. I know some of you will appreciate that. Apologize. So, all right, Mr. Loomis. I'm not sure if I did or not. Sir, did I swear you in yet or not? I got confused with this stuff. So do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this matter? Yes, sir. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Loomis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith. Can you state your name for the jury, please?
Mark Smith,
And Mr. Smith, where is it that you're employed?
Sioux City Fire Rescue.
In what capacity are you employed with the Sioux City Fire Rescue?
As a paramedic,
And how long have you been a paramedic?
going on 14 years as a paramedic. Been involved in fire EMS for 20 years, been with the city for 9 years of that.
Can you give the jury a sense of your educational background that allows you to do what you do as a paramedic?
Yes, so the paramedic program is about 1.5 years from start to finish. Annually, we do about 200 hours worth of training on the fire side and the EMS side.
Were you working back on February 24th of 2023?
Yes,
Now, does the fire department and the paramedics specifically have shifts that they work?
yes, we work 24-hour shifts for 24 on, 48 off.
And so on February 24th of 2023, you would have been on a 24-hour shift.
Correct.
While you were on duty on that particular day, were you called out for a stabbing at 414 11th Street here in Sioux City, Iowa?
Yes, we were.
Do you remember the time it was that you were called out for that stabbing?
It was approximately 9:45-ish, somewhere in there, give or take. For 2,100 hours, 2145.
So can you help the jury to understand when paramedics are called out, what happens when a call is made and received and you guys go out, talk about what that entails?
So when 911 gets a phone call, we are dispatched. When our tones go off, we have approximately 1 minute to be in the rig, ready to go out the door. In these situation that came in as a stabbing, so our protocol is we arrive, we stage about a block, 2 blocks away. We let the police department go in there and clear the scene, make sure the scene is safe for all of us to go in there and treat any victims that we need to.
When you respond, are you the only one that's going from the fire department?
No, so I'm on truck 1, which is the ladder truck in town. We have an officer, a driver, and a 3rd firefighter. I'm assigned as the driver. And on the ambulance, we have, at this particular night, we had 2 paramedics also on the ambulance. So there's 5 of us from the fire department that responded to this.
And so when you respond, you and the others respond to this particular location. Do you know which apartment that you're going to?
Yes, apartment 6 in this one.
Did you receive any further information from dispatch before arriving at this location, or what was the most information that you had when you were headed out?
That there was a stabbing, scene was unsecured to stage a block away or so, our standard procedure. So that's what we did. We waited for PD to arrive. They cleared the scene. They go through comm center or dispatch 911, however you want to word it. And they tell us that we can approach, which we did.
And that's what happened in this case as well?
Yes.
And was the scene secured then before you made entry?
Somewhat. There was nobody in handcuffs at that particular moment that I could tell, but there were multiple officers in different areas, kind of watching everything, separating people and giving us room to work.
And so who all makes entry from the fire department when you go in to check on this situation?
So we all go in. I was the first one into the building, first one into the apartment, and started our patient assessment.
And so when you go into the apartment, what is it that you see initially? What are your initial observations?
I see a person laying as we were walking into the apartment, we go downstairs, make a right-hand turn. There's 2 gentlemen standing outside with an officer. We go in, we find a person laying on his back. And when we enter a room, we develop a primary impression. Are they breathing, not breathing? This impression showed this gentleman laying on his back. And normally when you walk into a room, people will look at you. And that tells me that they're conscious. This person did not move their head at all. So that told me that he was probably unconscious at that particular moment. And then we started our initial assessment, airway, breathing, circulation, found that none of that was happening. So we initiated CPR.
When you first come into the apartment, where is the person when you come into the apartment?
He's directly past the door, feet was facing the door, head was further away from the door.
And you indicated that he was on his back
He was on his back, yes,
and he was unresponsive.
correct.
Was he breathing?
No,
Did he have a pulse?
no.
How did his skin look? Did you make any observations
was-
about his skin?
He was pale, gray, and that normally indicates there's poor perfusion going on.
Did he have clothes on?
Yes,
It's wintertime in February. Did he have coats on? Did he have a
Yes.
coat on?
yes, he did. Multiple layers, if I recall.
And what was the state of his clothing when you got there?
State were, they were intact, and normally in those situations, we did end up cutting the clothes to expose the chest, to put our patches on for defibrillation.
Was his coat zipped up? Do you recall?
I do not recall officially, no.
And so when you begin treatment of this particular individual who's later identified as William Harlan, is that right, Mr. Smith?
Correct.
Okay, and so when treatment begins of Mr. Harlan, he doesn't have a pulse, he's not breathing. Just generally, how would you describe his condition? Poor?
Very poor, yes.
And so at that point, you or the other paramedics initiate compressions?
Correct. I was the one that initiated the chest compressions. Called out the hallway, said we got CPR in progress. That alerts everybody that this is a time-sensitive situation that we need to get going to the hospital.
Now, when you initiate chest compressions, had you indicated that you cut the clothes of Mr. Harlan? Had you done that at this point?
No, not yet.
Okay. Why is it that you do what you do with the chest compressions first? What's the purpose of that?
So the purpose of the chest compressions is to squeeze the heart to get it kind of pumping. We mechanically pump the heart with chest compressions to get the blood circulating again, to oxygenate the brain and the heart.
Do you do that manually?
Yes,
Was there any response when that was initiated with Mr. Harlan?
no,
So-
no.
And so what is done next?
So we started CPR. We got him on a backboard to move, and a backboard is just a big piece of plastic, hard, rigid board. We put him on, we strap him down. I did have one of the officers handcuff him. So therefore, it's when we move the victim, his arms don't fall down. If they fall down, then that creates a tripping hazard and we can get caught up and potentially cause further harm to the patient or us. So I had him handcuffed. We moved from the apartment out to the ambulance. That's where we did our further treatments.
And so once you get into the ambulance, what's the further treatment that's initiated at the ambulance?
So inside the ambulance, we took the handcuffs off. We did cut his clothes. We put our fast patches on for defibrillation. We started an interosseous, which is like I put a needle into the bone. It's like an IV. We can push fluids, medications that way. And we started following the protocol of ACLS, which is advanced light cardiac support, which we give medications. Epinephrine we give, which helps contract the heart, get the heart going again. And we placed an advanced airway.
The treatment that was being provided to him, was that having any response from Mr. Harlan?
We did defibrillate him once, which then we did get a heartbeat started again. Right before we arrived at the hospital.
Was there any breathing?
No spontaneous breathing attempts were made.
When the clothes were cut off, is it just a matter of cutting the clothes up
We
along?
just went straight up midline, pushed them off to the side, and we placed our patches here and also here on the left side.
Are you still the primary caregiver once in the ambulance?
At this point, it's kind of a team effort between all the paramedics on scene.
And when you cut the clothing up the midline, what, if anything, do you observe about Mr.
We
Harlan?
did see a few stab wounds here, and there's one a little bit lower. That's all that we saw. They were not currently bleeding at the time, but we did place an occlusive dressing on there, it's called, which seals up the hole to help if there's any damage to the lung or something like that, so that the lung can maybe re-inflate if needed.
Now, when you say that you indicated that you observed 2 stab wounds, where on Mr. Harlan did you observe the stab wounds?
On the front chest, one was right below the clavicle and one was a little bit further below.
That'd be on his left side?
Left side, yes.
And when you say that they weren't actively bleeding, what do you mean by that?
They were just gashes basically, and there's no sign of blood coming out at all. Like a normal, you cut your finger, it bubbles up and bleeds and runs off your finger. There was no active bleeding right there.
What, if anything, did you note about his clothing when you were cutting up the midline of his clothing?
We didn't notice there was some blood over there, but we didn't notice a lot at the particular moment. When we did arrive at Mercy Medical, when we were moving from the ambulance into the hospital, which is probably a 45-50 foot corridor we went through, his left arm did drape off the side of the cot, which then a large pool of blood came out of his coat sleeve and landed on the floor and did go on the pants of one of my partners at that particular moment. And there was a large amount of blood that we trailed from the ambulance bay into the emergency room or trauma 1 room.
So the blood had kind of pooled in his coat, and then when his arm fell off, it drained out his arm?
Correct.
What arm was that?
The left arm.
How long does it take to transport a patient from this scene to the hospital?
According to my records, we were with the patient approximately 10 minutes.
In the
From what
hospital that you took Mr. Harlan to?
Was Mercy 1, which is a level 2 trauma center in which all patients in this kind of condition, that's where we have to go following the out of hospital protocol.
Once you arrive at Mercy, you remove him from the ambulance and then you take him inside. What's done with him at that point?
So when we get into the trauma 1 room, we talk to the nurses, the doctors, the anesthesiologist. We tell them what we saw, what we did, and then we transfer him from our bed to their bed. And then we let them take over primary care.
And so at that point, your care of him ends and it transfers to the hospitals.
Correct.
Was that the extent of your involvement as it relates to Mr. Harlan?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that his condition did not change really from the time that you first had contact with him until the time that he was passed off to Mercy?
Mental status, no. Breathing wise, no. We did get a heartbeat back for a period of time. Now that's one of those deals where it possibly could be the patient is getting going again, or just all the medications we've been giving him that started the heart back up.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The state has no further questions of this witness at this time.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Smith, did you observe or do you know, did you see how Mr. Harlan received these injuries?
And you want a further question, how he received it?
Yeah, did you see how it happened?
No,
So you have no testimony as to how he got injured?
no.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Loomis?
No, Your Honor.
All right. You can step down. Thank you. Next witness then?
State calls Officer Brandon Adamy.
Okay. Officer, just go ahead and have a seat first and adjust the microphone, and then I'll place you under. There you go. Maybe there you go. You look for it. And then I'll just have you raise your right. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this matter?
I do.
All right. Mr. Loomis, of course, when you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Adamy, can you state your name for the jury, please?
My name is Officer Brandon Adamy,
And officer, where is it that you're employed?
Sioux City Police Department.
And how long have you been an officer with the Sioux City Police Department?
3.5 years, April of 2020.
Are you a certified peace officer here in the state of Iowa?
Yes, I am.
And what is your current assignment with the Sioux City Police Department?
I work patrol on watch 2, which is the afternoon shift,
The afternoon covers what hours, officer?
2:30 to 10:30.
I'm going to take you back to February 24th of 2023, Friday. Were you working on that particular day?
Yes,
Okay, and were you working the afternoon shift on that day?
yes,
And just so I'm clear, your patrol, is that right, officer?
yes.
Okay, and so describe for the jury what a patrol officer's duties and responsibilities are.
You respond to calls first and foremost. You do traffic stops and just traffic accidents.
Did you have occasion to be dispatched on February 24th to 414 11th Street, apartment number 6 here in Sioux City?
Yes, I was.
And that was on February 24th?
Correct.
And what was the reason for being dispatched to that location?
There was a reported stabbing in apartment number 6,
Do you recall what time that call came in?
9:47 PM.
Did you respond to that call?
Yes, I did.
Did other officers respond to that particular call?
Yes,
Were you first on scene or were there others that arrived before you?
there were 3 other officers that arrived on scene. We had then Sergeant Hogendijk, Officer Schrader, and Officer Steele, and then myself.
When you arrived on scene, what is it that you did?
I was handed the defendant by Officer Steele.
So when you arrived on scene, you made entry into the apartment?
Correct.
Were the paramedics already there?
We were arriving at the same time.
Did you have any information other than what was initially dispatched over the radio that there was a stabbing and the apartment was apartment number 6 at this location?
I don't believe I had any other information.
And when you say that you get to this particular location, you make entry into the apartment building?
Yes.
And just describe for the jury how it is that you get to apartment number 6 when you come in that door.
So when you walk in the front door, there's a set of 2 stairs, one going up, one going down. When you go down the stairs, there's a hallway that goes left or right. You'll turn right and it's a door on the left.
And was Sergeant Hogendijk down there at that time?
Yes, he was.
Was Officer Steele down there at that time as well?
Yes, she was.
And you indicated that the defendant was passed on to you when you arrived?
Yes,
And do you see the defendant here this afternoon?
I do.
Can you identify him for the jury, please?
Yes, he's that gentleman right there with the long hair.
The state would ask the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
It will so recognize.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Adamy, when you had the defendant passed on to you, was he standing or seated at that point in time?
He was standing.
And what were you asked to do, or what is it that you did once the defendant was passed on to you?
I interviewed him, tried to find out what was going on.
And the most information that you had at this point in time, again, was that there had been a stabbing,
Correct.
and you're just trying to gather as much information as you can.
That's correct.
Do you know what involvement there is with the defendant at this point in time?
None.
And how would you characterize the defendant's demeanor when you're first making contact with him?
So he was quiet. He was uncooperative. When he was speaking with me, he would frequently turn his head to the side, shrug his shoulders. He appeared easily agitated. I would ask him very basic questions. And at one point, I just asked him what his name was, and he had said, "What's with all this questioning bullshit? I don't know what's going on."
Did you continue to talk with him?
I did.
Did his demeanor change in any way as you continue to talk with him and try and gather information?
Yeah, so it fluctuated. He went from being quiet and turning away to crossing his arms, kind of getting a little belligerent. So that would happen over the course of 5 minutes, at least 3 different times.
Were you continuing to try and ask him what was going on, what he knew about the situation?
Yeah,
Did he give any indication or say anything to you about what information he had?
yeah. So basically what he started with was that he was in the car sitting next to someone talking to him. Who that him is, I don't know, because he quickly switched that up and he said that he was outside talking to someone. And then that changed again to him saying that he was in the bathroom.
Did he say what he was doing in the bathroom?
He said he was masturbating.
Did you ask the defendant whether or not he had used any methamphetamine that night?
I did not ask him. He told me.
What did the defendant say about that?
He told me he was high, and I just asked him if he was marijuana high, and he had clarified that it was methamphetamine.
Did you ask him anything about the person that had been stabbed that was located within that apartment, about whether or not he knew that individual?
He said he didn't know who that person was.
You indicated that you had asked the defendant about his name, that you were trying to identify him. What, if anything, did the defendant say to that question?
Well, he told me his name was Nathaniel, and then when I tried to get his last name, that's when he became agitated and said, "What's with all the questioning? I'm done with this." He then told me his last name was Parker.
Did at any point he give you a different name?
He did. Shortly after, he told me his last name was Mosakitis.
Approximately, what's the time frame between when he gave you the first last name and then the second last name?
Between the two names, I'd say about 3-4 minutes.
Did he ever make any mention to you how he got over to the apartment or why he was there at the apartment?
He said he was there to see his pops.
Did you know who that was?
No,
Did you know what, if any, relationship he had to Pops?
no, I just assumed.
How long did you have contact with the defendant at the apartment? In total, from the point that he was passed on to you and you attempted to gather some information from him?
I'd say 10 minutes.
Do you believe that he was cooperative with you?
He was not.
Do you believe that he was forthcoming with information?
He was not.
After your contact with the defendant, did you have any further involvement on scene?
I did.
What was done with the defendant after your contact with him? Did he remain with a different officer?
He did.
And who was that?
Officer Knoll.
What did you do then after, I guess, passing him on to Officer Knoll or leaving him with him?
I stayed on scene with the other officers until we had the other possible witnesses taken care of, transported to the PD.
Did you know who those other persons were?
Not by name.
Were you involved in transporting any of those folks to the police station?
No.
Did you remain on scene after they were transported away?
Yes.
And what was your reason for remaining on scene then?
There was surveillance footage that we were trying to take a look at.
Were you or other officers able to obtain some video surveillance from that apartment?
Yes,
Did you have a chance to look at any of that?
I did.
And based on having an opportunity to look at that video surveillance, what, if anything, did you do after watching it?
Well, we had, prior to watching the video, we located some blood in the back of the apartment. The surveillance footage was taking a little bit longer to get a hold of, but we knew that the back is probably where, if they came in a vehicle, that's where they would have been. So we checked the back and I located a large pool of blood, which after then viewing the surveillance footage, we understood that the defendant had picked up from outside of a vehicle. They were in a vehicle together. The defendant got out of the vehicle, picked up the victim, carried him over about 10 to 15 feet and threw him hard on the ground. And that's the exact spot where I found the large pool of blood.
So the pool of blood that you saw outside was consistent with where you was consistent with what you saw in the video after you found the blood?
Yes.
After you find the blood outside, what is done at that point in time?
Well, we called the ID technicians who came out and photographed and made sure they got all the evidence that they needed.
Is that area secured in some way after you find what you find, the blood on the ground?
Yes, I was on scene. I stayed on scene the entire time that ID was there.
And do you secure that area then until ID arrives to document and photograph and collect things?
I do.
Did you ever go back inside the apartment,
To view the footage.
the video surveillance footage?
Yes.
Did you do anything else inside the apartment other than viewing the video surveillance footage?
No, I didn't.
Other than the large pool of blood that you saw outside, did you take note of anything else when you were outside looking for possible evidence or things that might be involved with this case?
There were blood droplets that were going up the alley northbound to go towards the front of the apartment complex.
And all the events that you're testifying to here this afternoon, officer, did they take place in Woodbury County, Iowa?
Yes, they did.
Thank you, officer. The state has no further questions for this witness at this time.
Cross examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Officer, could you describe the temperature that day?
It was cold.
Were you wearing hat, gloves, heavy coat?
No hats, no coat, gloves.
Okay, so even when you were walking around, you didn't have a hat on?
No, no.
Now, you did have your video running, is that correct?
My body camera?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it was running.
Okay, so your interaction with Mr. Parker is recorded, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so again, let's go through. So did he appear to you to be under the influence of something?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And then did he seem confused by some of your questions?
No,
Okay, so did he appear physically resistant to anything that you were directing him to do?
I wasn't directing him to do anything. I just was asking him questions.
Okay, so you weren't telling him to stand someplace, stay a certain place?
Nowhere in particular.
You didn't have him stay in the hallway there with you?
I told him that as of right now, until we were cleared to leave, that we were all gonna be kind of just hanging out.
Okay, so did he give you any resistance to following your directive?
Not that I can recall.
Was he yelling?
Define yelling.
Loud? Was he loud?
There were parts when his voice would spike from his very, very quiet speaking, that it would spike when he was getting agitated. But I wouldn't say it was yelling.
Okay. So for the most part, he was speaking in a very calm, low voice.
I wouldn't say calm. I would say avoidant.
And what?
Avoidant. He was whispering, sometimes trying to avoid me hearing him.
Now, you said he wasn't being very cooperative. Is that fair summation of what you were saying?
That's correct.
Are we under any duty to assist officers and to answer your questions?
No,
So the mere fact that somebody exercises their constitutional right is a problem for you?
no, it's not a problem for me. It's if somebody had been stabbed in my room, I would make sure I would cooperate with police,
But do
give them
you
all the
have to?
information.
Do you have to?
If you don't want to help, yeah.
So again, it's a bad thing to exercise your constitutional right to remain silent and answer questions.
Not at all.
When you were being directed to go to this apartment, did they tell you why you were going?
It was a report of a stabbing.
Okay. All right. And you observed video from the apartment, is that right?
Yes,
And did you observe Mr. Parker carrying Mr. Harlan?
yes.
Okay. And were you able to determine about what time that was?
I don't remember what time the video surveillance said it was.
But after he carried Mr. Harlan into the apartment, did he leave?
I don't recall seeing video footage of him leaving.
Now you were told there was a stabbing, right?
Correct.
And before you told Mr. Parker, You know if he knew there was a stabbing?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Sure. You were told over a radio that somebody had been stabbed.
Right.
Before you told Mr. Parker that somebody had been stabbed, you have any independent information that he knew somebody had been stabbed?
Just the room that he was in, I just assumed that he would know that somebody was stabbed.
So it's just an assumption on your part with no evidence.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so. Actually, at this point, Your Honor, could maybe we take a little break so we can set up a video from the officer's body cam? Would that be all right?
Sure. You're gonna be using your computer or what are you gonna
Yes.
be? Okay, well, why don't I just, you want to actually take a break or do you want to,
I think maybe it'd take maybe 5 minutes, just want to make sure volume works and everything and all that.
okay. Let's, we'll take a short break now. Just keep in mind the admonition I've previously given you and we'll just have the jury be called back when we're ready.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, if you just want to open that door, officer, that'd be great. They're coming around, they're gonna lead you out, so. Mr. Mulford, are you already plugged in? Okay. This will give us a little chance to quick test it. And make sure that- Go ahead and be seated. Come your way and we're gonna see. Okay, got your laptop already. You're ready, just give it a test run, make sure our audio is working too. Or is it, I assume this is one with audio, obviously, but yeah, okay.
Oh, sure.
Well, I don't know what James did, but I think he. Or double check, we got the video, it's the sound. But we had your sound, didn't we? Just from your,
We were sitting outside with the guy that's
okay. Well, in terms of technology, it takes a village, doesn't it? So, yeah, well, let's give them a few more minutes because they might need a little bit of. Well, yeah, we'll use the restroom quick if they need to. This is the time to use the restroom.
oh, sorry.
Council, you ready to go? Yeah, not yet. Well, will you tell the judge? Nobody's coming. You tell the judge we're gonna make a record of it? Never mind.
Want me to get the door? Oh,
Go ahead and bring them in.
No, they want me. Mr.
Oh, sorry.
No. Mr.
Yes, of course. Hold on. Officer, can you swing that door shut, just in case that's an issue? Yeah. Go ahead and be seated. Thank you. Sorry about that. Mr. Loomis, you're outside the presence of the jury. There's an indication we want to make some records, so go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think it's important for us to know the purpose of this particular video clip, why the defense is playing it, for what purpose, because that dictates how it is treated. If it's going to be treated as an exhibit, or how it's going to be offered, or what the purpose it's being used for. I think we need to know how this is being treated and used. Is it for impeachment purpose of this witness? Is it going to be offered as an exhibit for the defendant's statement, or how is this going to be treated? And so I think that we need to know that before we bring the jury back in and play this in front of them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I assume there may be some, albeit limited statements on here by the defendant. I don't know what there are, but Mr. Lewis, why don't you tell us what this is all about?
Certainly. This exhibit is going to be used to show the demeanor and the appearance of the defendant, not for any purposes of what he was saying, but to, in essence, rebut how the officer portrayed Mr. Parker's statements, demeanor, and affect while he was being questioned.
Okay. So I take that as being a rebuttal, or well, let's call it rebuttal, Mr. Loomis. Where does that leave us, do you think?
Does he intend to offer it as an exhibit?
I do.
Where does that leave us, Mr. Loomis, from your perspective?
The state's not going to object, Your Honor.
Okay, so I don't know exactly what's on here. I only know based upon what Officer Adamy said. So, yeah, and I appreciate you raising the issue, Mr. Loomis, because it does raise different issues depending upon how we're treating it, but.
Well, yes, I'm just clarifying for the record so that it's known that this is really essentially played for purposes of impeachment. That's how I view this. And I just want to make sure that that's the reasoning for this being played.
Thank you for asking the question and making it clear. So are we otherwise ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we are ready. Go ahead and bring them in.
Move away a little bit, like towards the bed. I can't see it.
It's just a matter of seeing his face, isn't it? I mean, mostly. Everyone may be seated. And if you're ready to show the body cam video, or if you have any additional questions, go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. Officer, is there any, on your body cam, are there any indicia or indications that it's your video?
yeah,
Okay, and what would they be?
it's got my first initial and my last name about in the middle of the video at the bottom.
Okay, and can you see that, what's on the screen in front of you?
Yes,
Is that look to you to be body cam footage of yours?
Yes,
Okay, and have you, since this incident, have you reviewed your own body cam?
multiple times.
Okay, so do you recognize what you see on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
Uh, Your Honor, at this point, I would, this is marked as defense exhibit 106, Your Honor. At this point, I'd like to publish exhibit 106 to the jury.
Let's ask at this point in time, does the state have any objection to one, the publishing, and two, the admission of 106?
No, Your Honor.
So let's, 106 is admitted. And you may publish it at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
No, that's fine. I didn't know if you heard me. That's all.
When was this? When were you sitting in the car with them?
You wanna just go right?
No, I'm seeing the sun.
Freeway truck.
So you were sitting outside with the guy that stabbed?
I was sitting outside. That's why I'm
Make sure he does fall. Make sure-
Who's your uncle?
this world.
All right.
Okay, so how are you involved in all this? Why were you outside of that room?
I was in the army with my stereo. I'm visiting my pops.
I'm sorry? You're visiting your pops? Why were you over here?
You were outside.
Your guy stopped?
You were in the car.
I'm sorry, what's your name? Can you just speak up a little bit? There's a lot of noise over there. I can't really- Okay, that's fine. Speak loud.
Okay, I was saying that happened. That's it.
What happened? What man came in?
I'm saying it's about. Sitting inside of something for like whatever. Off my kind when someone walked away. Yeah, maybe somebody. So.
Are you marijuana high right now?
I mean, you check it.
Okay, I gotta pat you down. Okay, listen, you might be high, but I need you to be as sober as you can when you talk to me, okay?
Okay, I was sitting there.
Where were you, let's go one step at a time. Where were you sitting?
I don't know.
I'm gonna have you walk through though, okay? Whatever you do know, you're gonna tell me, right?
Yeah, I already did.
Okay, so let's walk through, 'cause I'm not that smart and you're not talking too loud, okay? So,
Man, I'm gonna be having the bus there, whatever, so I don't know. Probably see it, don't be being rushed, you know. and try to-
so some guys stabbed, okay? You know, if somebody was telling me like, hey, give me some answers here, I would give them some answers, somebody was stabbed. I want to just be, I want to be
I
shaken.
don't know who said, I don't know. That's
Where were you last 5 minutes? Bathroom of which apartment? The one that we were all just in?
Yeah.
And you don't know a single thing?
Oh, I've seen that.
It's just been.
That's-
Okay, that's, okay. So you're in the bathroom rubbing one out, okay? You don't hear a single thing.
I'm saying that I was, I'm on my business.
Sure. So you just, when did you come out of the bathroom? Sure, you're rubbing one out in the bathroom.
Yeah.
When did you come out?
Whenever they got camera, whatever, boom, boom, and I was, oh shit, and I was saying, we give it up.
Okay, so how long were you in the bathroom for?
I don't.
Well, you can't be done with it. I don't care if you don't appreciate it. At the end of the day, somebody was stabbed in the same room that you were in. Okay? You definitely didn't come in stabbed. Where's the blood? Okay, exactly. What you got an idea on you, my man? How's your handwriting? Probably better than mine. Very slowly, spell your first name. Nathaniel. Nathaniel, what is your last name? Hey Nathaniel, I hope you understand that if you're in the room where somebody just got stabbed, police have to do a job where they ask questions, right?
I didn't have anything to do with that.
And we gotta figure that out.
Well, I'm telling you, I didn't.
Hey Nathaniel, what's your last name, man? Can you please help me out here? If you got nothing to do with that, I'm gonna cut you loose. Parker? Mr. Parker, what's your date of birth?
Since 1996.
Hey, dude, I get it, but if you're in a room where some guy gets stabbed, hey, let me ask you, do you have family? Do you have anyone in this entire world you care about? Okay, hold that thought. Somebody stabs that person. Do you not want us to question the people inside of that very room or the person you care about? The answer is you would want us to question every single person, then find out the person who you care about got stabbed. So Nathaniel, 10/29/92. What's your social?
All right, officer, after watching that, would you say that you might appear to be more upset than Mr. Parker is during this conversation?
No.
Um, certainly at no point was he yelling at you. Is that right?
No.
Was he? Did,
Hold
when you
on.
went,
Hold on a second. I want to clarify
Yeah.
the answer. I think your question was, I just think we need to know what you meant by your answer, by your no, whether you know it was right or no, it was not right. So I want to ask the question to make sure it's clear.
Mhm.
Sometimes this comes in incorrectly or unclear. Will you tell us what the question was?
Question, at no point was he yelling at you, is that right?
And I think you said
The answer is
no.
no.
And you mean no?
He did,
was
yeah.
Not yelling at you, or do you mean no, at no point was he yelling at you? I just want to be clear.
Right.
Sometimes these are less than clear.
No, he wasn't yelling at me.
Okay. That's what I thought you meant, but I wanted to be clear, so we're safe.
and at some point, you even put your hands on him to search him for weapons, I believe, right?
I patted him down.
Did he object to that? Did he fight you, struggle?
No.
But yet it's still your testimony that he was upset.
Yes.
I have nothing further for this witness. Your Honor.
Mr. Loomis, anything further?
Officer reviewed your body cam video. You certainly had more contact with him than what's shown on this particular clip. Is that fair?
Yes.
And it's also fair that part of your interaction with anybody as an officer is dealing with them and speaking with them, and you can see their face, correct?
Yes.
And it's evident that we can't see Mr. Parker's face and his reaction facially to your questions, can we?
No, we can't.
And so part of your assessment of an individual, whoever it is that you're speaking with, under any search situation, regardless of what that circumstance is, you're taking in not just what the person says, but you're taking in how they say it and what their facial expression is. Is that fair?
Yes, it is.
And it's fair to say that this particular person, the defendant, he was gesturing a lot with his hands.
Yes.
And at one point he crossed his arms when you asked him a question about his name.
Yes.
And those are the indications, or those are the things that you're talking about as a whole in giving your assessment of what his demeanor is.
Yes.
Thank you, officer. The state has no other questions.
Anything else?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you, officer. You're excused.
Thank
Free
you,
to
Your
go.
Honor.
Next witness for the state.
The state calls Wendy Hess.
Go ahead. Okay.
I'm just gonna have you raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this matter.
I do.
Thank you. Just state your name if you would for the record, please.
My name is Wendy Hess.
And then Mr. Loomis, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Hess. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Ms. Hess, where is it that you're employed?
I am employed in the Woodbury County Communications Center, which is the 911 dispatch center.
And what is your role with the dispatch center?
My position is the communications center director,
How long have you been with the communications center overall?
almost 25 years,
And how long have you been the director?
just a little over a year.
And so can you let the jury know what your duties are as a director of the communication center?
Sure. I oversee the daily operations of the staff, make sure that the equipment is in good working order, and basically just manage the operations of the 911 dispatch center.
And are you familiar with how 911 calls come into the dispatch and how those calls then go out to both fire and police?
Correct.
Can you describe that for the jury, please?
Sure. Generally, there's 4 or 5 communication operators on duty. Either when 911 or non-emergency calls ring, anybody in the room answers that call. They then gather information from the caller and put information into our computer system. Depending on the type of call, either then they dispatch law enforcement and medical responders, whatever is appropriate based upon the information they gathered.
And so that information that's gathered is coming from that 911 call?
Correct.
And then is that information then, as you indicate, I believe, dispersed then or put out to either fire or police or both, depending on who's involved in responding?
Yes, depending on who's involved, it's either disseminated via the radio or, for example, in Sioux City, officers also have computers in their cars where they see that information that the dispatchers type in.
And so they have some information then responding to some call that they're being dispatched to.
Correct.
And are you familiar with the process of calls when they come in, how they're stored, maintained and kept?
Yes.
Are they stored?
Yes, we have a recording system, so all phone calls, all radio traffic that comes through our dispatch center is recorded, and we maintain a copy of those recordings for 1 year.
So then how do you ensure that the recordings that are made from the communication center are accurate with what is being called in by the caller?
There's really no way for us to manipulate the recordings. It's pulling it right off the 911 lines or right off the radio system. The recorder also date time stamps when it was received. And then people have limited access to that system, so.
And so the equipment that's used to record and store those, is that maintained in some way?
It is. We have a contract with the vendor that provides the equipment, that monitors it to make sure it's working. We also access the recording equipment on a regular basis, so we would be able to identify if it was not functioning.
I want to direct your attention to a call that was placed to the communication center on February 24th of 2023 at 9:47 PM. Are you familiar with that particular call?
Yes, I am.
And that complaint number that was assigned to this call is 23 SC 05540. Is that right?
Correct.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
And what the Ms. Hess is states exhibit number 1. You recognize states exhibit number 1?
Yes,
And what is that?
that is a copy of the 911 call we received on that day.
Is this a fair and accurate recording of that 911 call?
It is.
Any objection to one?
No objection, Your Honor.
One is admitted.
Now, Ms. Hess, this particular 911 call you indicated was made at 9:47 PM. Is this in regards to a stabbing that was called in at 414 11th Street, apartment number 6?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would like to play state's exhibit number 1 for the
I
jury.
think we're set up to do that. So it just switched over.
Seven, 29.
Right now, he's.
911, yeah, just for the emergency.
Yeah, come over here to, 414th 11th Street. Apartment 6.
Hey, what's going on there?
I picked up a friend of mine, he got stabbed in the shoulder, and he's unconscious, but he moved around a little bit, so, he needs, assistance.
Okay,
So please.
hold on. So your friend got stabbed and he's unconscious?
Yeah, right now, I mean, he moved his arm, so I know, whatever. I picked
Okay.
him up over there on, over there by, Select Mart.
Okay. One
And
second.
he was saying,
Okay, how old is he?
oh, it was 40 something.
Okay, is he awake at all?
No, I don't think he's breathing.
You don't think he's breathing?
No.
Okay, we got him on the way, okay? Stay on the phone with me.
I'll be up there because there's security around. I'll be up there.
Okay, hold on. Oh, you know who's visit?
No, I had not. I just, he was coherent there for a while then. Come on.
Okay, what is your name?
My name's Nathaniel Parker.
Okay, what is your first name?
Willie, I forget his last name. It's made of.
Okay, like we said, I'm saying paramedics to help you now, just stay on the line, I'll tell you exactly what to do, okay?
I'll be up there.
Wait, is there somebody with him?
Yeah.
Okay, is you,
My friend here.
where was he stabbed at?
I have his daughter is. Two stab wounds, punctured.
Two stab wounds?
Yeah, cause, looks like it's left shoulder upper.
Two stab wounds in his chest?
Yeah, just send somebody, please.
We've already got him on.
Dying or what?
Okay, we've already got him on the way. Are you able to have somebody go downstairs and meet the officers and the paramedics while I'm staying on
I
phone?
live on the bottom, and I'm gonna go upstairs.
Okay.
The rest of that, I'll be up there right now.
Are you able to go on the phone with me and put touch his wounds?
Well, no, I got my friend here, he's gonna look after him, but,
Is there something that you guys can use, like a clean bag cloth to cover his wounds press friendly so he's not bleeding out?
no, he's not bleeding out, it's just puncture wound. But you can tell it's like a knife wound.
Okay, we've got him on the way. If somebody can go let him in, okay?
I got you, I'll be up there right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, you're coming.
Ms. Hess, on this particular call, were both police and fire dispatched.
Yes,
And did both respond to this call?
yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hess. The state has no further questions for this witness.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. Ms. Hess, you're excused.
Thank you.
Thank you. State's next witness.
The state calls Officer Jacob Knoll.
Go ahead and have a seat, and then I'll play. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this matter? Yes, I do. Why don't you go ahead and state your full name for us?
My name is Jacob Lee Knoll.
Mr. Loomis, when you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Officer.
Afternoon.
Officer Knoll, can you tell the jury where it is that you're employed?
Sioux City Police Department.
And for how long have you been an officer with the Sioux City Police Department?
I've been an officer since August of 2021.
Are you a certified peace officer here in the state of Iowa?
Yes.
What are your current duties with the Sioux City Police Department?
Uniform patrol watch 2.
And watch 2 is at the afternoon shift,
Yes.
2:30 to
10:30
10:30?
PM. Yep.
Were you working back on December 24th of 2023?
I was.
Again, working the afternoon shift?
Yes.
And while you were on duty back on February 24th, were you dispatched out to 414 11th Street, apartment number 6?
Yes.
And what was the reason for that dispatch?
I was dispatched out there due to a stabbing that had occurred in apartment 6.
And as I understand it, Officer Knoll, that call came in at 9:47 PM.
Correct.
Was that the extent of the information that you had in responding to that particular call, that there had been a stabbing and it was at this location?
It was at the, yeah, stabbing at the location. They brought somebody home and they were stabbed.
Were there other officers on scene when you got there?
Yes.
Were the paramedics on scene when you got there?
Yes.
And so walk the jury through what it is that you would have done upon arrival at the scene.
Mhm.
First, kind of describing the layout of this particular apartment building that you enter into.
Upon arrival, I walked to the front door. I did notice that the paramedics were carrying an individual out on a stretcher, which is going to be our victim. Walking through the front door, I saw other officers down on the bottom floor. So I walked down the stairs to the bottom floor. There's a hallway that goes to the left and to the right. Initially, I was told by Sergeant Hogendijk at the time to just clear the residence real quick in apartment 6, where they had found the victim. So myself and Officer Hemmingson just cleared the apartment real quick. Once we realized there's no one in there, I was told to stand with Officer Adamy, who is currently interviewing an individual.
And who was that individual that Officer Adamy was in contact with and speaking with at that time?
I was told that it was Nathaniel Parker.
Is that the defendant?
Yes.
Okay, do you see him here this afternoon?
Yes.
Can you identify him for the jury, please?
Yep. Individual, with the black coat, long hair, glasses.
State would ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will reflect that.
Thank you, Your Honor. So when you're following the directive of the officer and going and assisting Officer Adamy, the conversation between the defendant and Officer Adamy is already taking place.
Correct.
And so when you first approach, what is it that you do at that point?
At that point, I stand with Officer Adamy, just to assist with him standing by this individual. I did notice Officer Adamy was collecting this individual's information at the time that I initially approached both the defendant and Officer Adamy.
Are you just listening at this point in time? Or are you engaging in conversation or talking with the defendant when you first approach?
This time, when I first approached, just listening and observing.
And in listening and observing, how would you characterize the defendant's demeanor as he was talking with Officer Adamy?
When Officer Adamy was asking for his information, he seemed easily irritated, angry, evasive, uncooperative. I noticed that when he would ask a question, when Officer Adamy, would ask a question, he would close his eyes, shrug, shake his head, squint his face as if he was upset about Officer Adamy asking for his social security and birthday. He would shrug, turn off to the side when asked questions by Officer Adamy. At that point, I tried to reassure him that we were just trying to get his information. And at this point in time, that's all we were trying to do, just trying to figure out what had happened.
What was his response to you when you were trying to talk with him and tell him that you're just trying to obtain that information from him?
Same response. As far as closing his eyes, shaking his head, saying he didn't really know what was going on. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Officer Knoll.
I then proceeded to ask him, I said, so nothing happened while you were inside the apartment? Then he proceeded to be evasive with that question and tell me that he was really high. Before I could ask any more questions, he told me that he had drugs on him. I never asked if he had any drugs on him, never asked where any drugs were on him. He decided to focus more on drugs that were on him rather than me trying to ask him about what had happened inside the apartment building.
Officer Knoll, was there a discussion with the defendant about him being in the bathroom
There
of the
was,
apartment?
yes.
And was there a discussion about why he was in the bathroom?
Yes, yeah, he said he was in the bathroom and stated that he was masturbating inside the bathroom.
Did he give any indication that he knew what had taken place or what was going on?
No,
Did he give any indication that he knew who the person was that had been stabbed?
no,
Did he provide any information that was helpful in terms of your efforts to collect and gather information for purposes of the investigation?
no.
Was there anything that the defendant said about what his name was that changed during the period of time that you had any contact with him?
Yes. While walking out to the patrol car, I was going to transport him to the station to interview him. He asked an individual, the Officer Steele was interviewing him, asked him, I believe, for a code or something like that. I overheard Officer Adamy say, do you know this individual? And that individual said, yes, his name is Nathaniel Masakitas. Nathaniel then said, yes, my last name is Masakitas, changing his last name from what was Parker to Masakitas. Later on, when we got to the patrol car, he did tell me that his last name actually was Nathaniel Parker.
So during the time that you had contact with him, he had changed his name or told you different names?
Yes.
Did you transport the defendant to the police station to be interviewed?
I did.
How much contact do you believe that you had in total, the length of time of contact that you would have had with him? Both on scene at the apartment and during transport to the station?
I'd say anywhere from 15 to a half hour.
15 minutes to a half hour?
Yep.
Did you get the sense that his demeanor changed at all during the course of time that you had contact with him?
No, I think he kept the same demeanor, just agitated, uncooperative throughout, angry, kind of more concerned about going back inside of the apartment and more concerned about the methamphetamine rather than the stabbing that had taken place.
And all the events that you're testifying to here today, this afternoon, Officer Knoll, did they take place in Woodbury County, Iowa?
Yes, they did.
Thank you. The state has no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Los?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, when you're ready.
Officer, do you wear a body cam?
Yes, I do.
And on February of this year, during this incident that you've testified to, were you wearing your body cam?
Yes,
And so that body camera was on?
it was. Yes.
And so you believe that it will show Mr. Parker being angry?
Yes. If you watch the whole thing, yes.
You'll show him being upset?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about some of the things that did happen. So did he refuse to go with you?
No.
Did he voluntarily provide information against his own interest?
As far as methamphetamine, the possession of,
Just as far as anything, officer, anything against his own interest?
no.
So he didn't provide you information that of something that could be negative for him?
Provided name, birthday. Friday that he was in the bathroom.
Maybe I'm not asking the question well enough, officer. If someone provides you information of a crime, do you think that's going to probably be negative for them?
Not necessarily. If they could be a witness to the crime, it could help out.
Okay. So if he provided you information that he was possessing drugs, is that a positive thing for him to provide to you, officer?
I'd say it's negative in the sense that possessing drugs is illegal, but positive in the sense that I guess he's being truthful.
And he did those things.
What's that? Sorry.
And he did those things.
Yeah.
You weren't hitting him, physically forcing him to provide this information
No.
to you?
No.
Okay. But yeah, you still believe that his interaction with you was an angry one?
Yes, when it came to questions about the stabbing, yes.
Okay. Now, did you yourself see anyone get stabbed?
No.
And in fact, nobody was actually stabbed inside the apartment as far as the physical evidence. Is that right?
As far as all I know is I talked to him. I didn't.
Okay. All right. So when you took him to the police station, was he in cuffs?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So did he attempt to flee from you?
No.
Did he resist you putting him in cuffs?
No.
Did he curse you?
No.
Now when you have body cam footage,
Mhm.
is there any markers or indications to show that it's your body cam footage?
Yes, there should be, yes.
Okay. And to prepare for today's testimony, did you review your body cam footage?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, at this point, I would ask to be able to offer exhibit 105, which is some of Officer Knoll's body cam footage, and I would be offering it to impeach his testimony as to the demeanor of Mr. Parker, Your Honor.
Any record or objection with regard to that, Mr. Loomis?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, so I'm taking it, Mr. Los, that you're talking about, is it exhibit 105?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so I'm taking that as an offer. There's no objection. So 105 is admitted. And you may publish it at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we would need to click that over.
Yep, I gotta switch my. And we'll. Yeah, this is just, we'll take our time so the students can leave and then there will be. All right.
Daniel, these are votes.
Yes or no?
No, sir.
You don't see anything that says that. No, I didn't think you heard about this. But I picked them up over there.
Dave, what do your boots look like?
Black and white. Yeah.
Black and white.
Championship. Yes. No, I mean, when I bring it here.
I didn't really see a lot. We were trying to get.
There's some bullets.
You didn't make it a stab.
No, which ones? Yeah. No, twice. These two, when you're, all right, so this officer will take you to the station.
Yep.
Can I get my phone too?
Where's your coat at, dude? Coat's in there?
Yeah. Oh.
What color is it? They just don't want anyone else going in there. What color? Yeah, it's a crime scene, so we can't have anyone go in there, okay?
And that's what I'm trying to figure out, but these two guys are here.
We'll just go without the coat, okay? The car's warm, I promise that, okay? All right, man. Let's go to the station, all right? All right.
Hey, hold on. Hey, yo, can I get the sweater pop? Can they? Can they? They take photographs of your parking. Sure. All right.
Are you related to this guy?
All right, this is the part we need you to relate to him. Yeah.
Who is he, dude?
It's my first. What's his name?
Were you able to observe?
Yes,
Were you able to observe that, officer?
yes.
And is that the actual video or part of it from your interaction with Mr. Parker?
It's part of it, yes.
Okay. And so how would you describe his demeanor from that video?
From that snippet of the body cam video, not much. I mean, he's cooperative in that and the fact of going to the station with me. Wasn't a whole lot of questions asked in that snippet of the video, though.
Okay, but you were around and you observed when the other officer took Mr. Parker's information and wrote it down. Do you recall testifying to that earlier?
Yes,
Okay. So you were present and you observed him answering those questions.
yes,
And that's when you believe he was angry and upset.
yes.
Your Honor, I don't have anything for this witness.
Mr. Loomis, anything by way of redirect?
Just briefly, did you catch all of exhibit 105, Officer Knoll? Towards the end where the defendant is asking Pops for a coat?
Yes,
Okay, do you know who that individual is?
yes. That individual is going to be a Nathaniel Parker. I believe it's either his dad or grandma. Or grandpa, I'm sorry.
And that person is asked a question by Officer Adamy, right?
Yes.
He's asking who this is to you and this Nathaniel Parker Junior says that he's my first cousin.
Yes,
You hear that? That's not true, is it?
that's not true.
Thank you, Officer Knoll. The state has no other questions at this time.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Officer, thank you very much. Next witness, Mr. Loomis.
The state calls Officer Kimberly Steele.
You can go ahead and have a seat. And I just couldn't have it. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this matter?
I do.
Great, thank you. Would you tell us your full name, please?
Kimberly Steele.
Great. And Mr. Loomis, when you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer. Can you tell the jury where it is that you're employed?
Sioux City Police Department,
And how long have you been an officer with the Sioux City Police Department?
2.5 years.
Are you a certified peace officer here in the state of Iowa?
I am.
What are your current duties with the Sioux City Police Department?
I currently work Watch 3, which is overnights on patrol.
Officer Steele, were you working back on February 24th of 2023?
Yes, I was.
What was your assignment back on that particular day?
I was working Watch 2 patrol.
That's the afternoon shift, as I understand it.
Correct.
And while you were on duty on February 24th, were you dispatched out to 414 11th Street here in Sioux City,
Yes, I was.
apartment number 6?
Correct.
And what was the reason for the call out to that apartment?
Dispatch had stated that there was a stabbing.
Is that the most information that you had in responding to that call that night?
I'd have to refer back to my notes, but that was the basic gist of what was happening, that there was someone in an apartment that they were stabbed. There wasn't a whole lot of information.
And that call came in at 9:47 PM?
Correct.
You responded to that particular call?
Yes, I did.
Did other officers respond?
Yes, I was first on scene and then other officers arrived after me.
And who was next on scene?
Sergeant Hogendijk.
So walk the jury through what you did and upon arrival at this location.
Okay. When the call came out, I obviously let dispatch know where I was coming from. I wasn't very far away, a handful of blocks. Went code 3, which is lights and sirens. Upon arrival, this particular apartment building is under key, so only residents have a key. The fire department has a special key they can access, but we don't have access unless somebody lets us in. I got there, I'm knocking on the door, trying to get somebody's attention to let me in. As I'm doing that, my sergeant shows up, Sergeant Hogendijk, along with me. Shortly after that, the complainant, Nathaniel Parker Jr., comes to the door. He's the one that called in. and allowed us into the apartment and showed us down to his apartment. So, which is basically down the stairs to the right, and his apartment's on the left.
Let me stop you right there, Officer Steele, just for a moment. So when you approach the door, it's secured, is
Correct.
that right?
Yes,
And no one is at the door?
correct.
How long are you and Officer Hogendijk or Sergeant Hogendijk then at the door before Nathaniel Parker Jr. comes to let you in?
Maybe a minute. I mean, it always seems longer than it is. I mean, long enough that you got to knock on the door and you're like, come on, hurry up.
So when you're at the door and Nathaniel Parker Jr. comes and lets you in, where do you go from there? Do you go down or go up the stairs?
Go down the stairs. Nathaniel led us downstairs to apartment 6.
And so what happens when you and Sergeant Hogendijk get down to apartment number 6?
Basically, Nathaniel shows us where the apartment is. We tell him, don't go in. You can see the victim laying on the ground. Basically, what we do when we arrive on a scene right there, the victim is not our number one priority. It's about getting the people out and trying to figure out what happened, making sure the scene is safe so that medical can come in and take care of the victim. The victim at glance looked very gray. I couldn't tell you if the victim was breathing or not, to be honest. Walk in and we're trying to get Jeffrey Lee out of the apartment. He's very argumentative, not wanting to come out. So we have Nathaniel Jr. outside and then Jeffrey Lee trying to get him out. He's very argumentative. He's being physically removed from the apartment. I'm standing kind of in the doorway, blocking medics from coming in because the scene wasn't safe yet. And while doing so, I'm directing people to sit down in the hallway that were having come out of the apartment. And then we find who would be identified as Nathaniel Jr. III in the bathroom. He's brought out of the apartment and medics are left or brought back in or okay to get to the victim at that point.
So Officer Steele, when you make entry or when the door is open to the apartment, does Nathaniel Parker Jr. actually open up the door when you get there, or had it already been open when you are coming down the hallway? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
And so what's the first thing that you see when the door is opened?
I can see a victim or someone laying on the ground. The door can't even be opened all the way into the apartment. The body's laying there on the floor, head towards what would be the bathroom, and the feet were kind of in the way of allowing us to open the door into the apartment all the way.
And that person on the floor was identified as William Harlan?
Correct.
Okay, and the people that are initially inside the apartment, you indicated, could you see Jeffrey Lee inside the apartment when that door was opened and you were standing in the doorway?
I did not personally see him right away. Hogendijk was in the apartment first, so he was kind of blocking my view from the initial going in. I believe when I saw Jeffrey, Sergeant Hogendijk was trying to get him out of the kitchen area.
And where was Nathaniel Parker Jr. When Sergeant Hogendijk was in the apartment removing Jeffrey Lee?
In the hallway, right outside his apartment.
And you were maintaining contact with him at that point while Sergeant Hogendijk was getting Jeffrey Lee out?
Correct. And other officers were arriving.
Other officers were arriving on scene at that time as well?
Yes.
Did Sergeant Hogendijk have to go back in after Jeffrey Lee was taken out of the apartment?
I don't recall completely. I do know that there was a pause between Jeffrey Lee and realizing someone was in the bathroom who would be identified as Nathaniel Parker III.
And that individual, do you see him in the courtroom here this afternoon?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify him for the jury, please?
Yes, he's sitting over at the table there, black suit, long hair, glasses.
State would ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
It will so reflect.
How would you characterize the size of this particular apartment, Officer Steele?
Very small.
And how many rooms are in this apartment?
I believe the main living area, the kitchen and the bathroom.
Okay, and so when you walk in through the front door to this apartment, what's the layout?
It's literally just like a small open area where you would have maybe a couch or a bed and then maybe a TV or something. And then to the back right corner is a doorway where the small kitchen is. When you first walk in the door, right to the right is the bathroom door.
After the defendant was removed from the bathroom and pulled out of the apartment or taken out of the apartment, what was your next step or what was your next involvement on scene?
My next involvement was trying to separate everyone. At that point, we don't want people talking to each other. We want to separate them and find out what's going on and get information from everyone. At that point, I had officers showing up. So, and of course, the door is secured. So I'm having to go up the stairs, let officers in. And I kind of was like, here, you take this person. And so kind of separating people. And then
So your role then at that point was to kind of separate the individuals that were inside the apartment and then pass them on to other officers who were arriving for those officers to gather information from those persons?
correct. That is what I did. Yes.
Now, did you yourself have any role in speaking with any of those individuals that were inside the apartment?
Yes, I did. I ended up actually speaking to our complainant, Nathaniel Parker Jr., who was the one that called in, and it's also his apartment. He's the complainant. He was also the he's the one that resides in that apartment.
So you were able to determine that Nathaniel Parker Jr. Was the rented that apartment or lived there in that apartment?
Correct.
During your, let me ask this, Officer Steele, do you know what the relationship is between Nathaniel Parker Jr. and the defendant, Nathaniel Parker III?
Did I know then or do I know now?
Do you know now?
Yes,
What is it?
they are father and son.
Okay. Did you know then what the relationship was?
No, I did not.
And when you're speaking with people in a situation like this, what is the goal? What are you trying to do?
Trying to identify who everyone is, who lives there, who doesn't live there, how did they get there, why are they involved, what were they doing there?
So you're trying to gather as much information as you can to decide or determine what happened.
Correct.
How would you characterize Nathaniel Parker Jr.'s demeanor when you were speaking with him?
Confusing. He seemed like he was withholding information or wasn't quite sure how to answer something. Kind of deflecting answers.
How long did you spend talking with him at the scene?
I would say roughly 15, 20 minutes.
During your 15 to 20 minutes in contact with the defendant's father, did his demeanor change throughout that period of time, or did it remain the same as you described earlier?
For the most part, it remained the same.
Were you confused by what he was telling you?
Yes.
Was he giving you conflicting stories?
Yes, he was.
Is that why you were confused?
Yes. When I'd ask a question, he would tell me one thing, but it just didn't make sense to what we came upon and what he was telling me.
After talking with the defendant's father, did you have any other involvement in the Investigation on scene?
Just securing the scene and making sure that it was gonna be secure until, search warrant was, given, and then that was basically it. I transported, Nathaniel Parker Jr. to the police department for detectives to talk to as well.
So you transported him, were the other individuals, Jeffrey Lee and the defendant, transported to the station as well for interviews?
Correct. All of them went to the department, yes.
All the events that you're testifying to here this afternoon, Officer Steele, did they take place in Woodbury County, Iowa?
Yes, they did.
Thank you, Officer Steele. The state has no further questions at this time.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Officer, are you aware who called for assistance?
Yes,
Okay, and who was that?
Nathaniel Parker Jr.
Now, you said you spoke with him for a while. Did you smell the odor of alcohol on this person?
Not that I recall.
Did he appear to be intoxicated?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Was he confused?
He didn't seem confused, no.
So how he was talking wasn't confusing?
How he was answering my questions was confusing.
And did you yourself ever see like any of the video from the apartment when Mr. Harlan was brought into the apartment of Mr. Parker Jr.?
After the fact, yes.
And so you're aware that Mr. Harlan was brought into that apartment, and then Mr. Parker Jr. called for assistance when he figured out what had happened?
I knew that he called for help, yes.
And you are aware that he did have them carry Mr. Harlan into his apartment and open the door for them to do so?
I didn't know that at the time, specifically.
But you're aware of that now?
I am now, yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything else, Mr. Loomis?
Yes, just for clarification, Officer Steele, when you're speaking with the defendant's father, you had not seen the video surveillance at that point in time?
Correct.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Nothing else? Okay, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another witness, Mr. Loomis?
Now, may we approach?
Yes. Well, we're outside the present computer, I should say, just to be clear. We took a break, so they excuse for an afternoon break, or so once you indicate you want, it's a matter of you want to take a.
Yes, just for purposes of scheduling, Your Honor, I've exhausted the witnesses I had lined up for today. With Mr. Malone not feeling well, as I indicated, I had the jail take him back. And so I'm trying to line up some officers that I think would be short that we could get in. The issue that I'm having is that those officers were involved in that incident on Sunday night that's being investigated by the DCI. And because, yes, Your Honor, and because those individuals were involved in that situation, there's an ongoing investigation. There's some interviews that are being conducted with these same witnesses that are involved in this case. And so I'm trying to figure out if I can get them over here this afternoon to get them on. And so if you could just give me a little latitude here to find them, I'd appreciate it, Your Honor, if I'm able to.
No problem. Just, why don't we just stand out until we have some, understand, if we're done, we're done, and if we get a few over here, we can think that other.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, could we have at least 10 minutes hard so I can run over to the office so I know that I can be over there? Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate that.
Feel free to show your office. All right. Not necessarily however long it takes, but good 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. Gotta check our time. Well, you bet. Yeah.
Well, you had it in 106.
John has the copies.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so what I'm saying is, there's 106, and there's other things I still need to physically have it, yeah. Because, I'm kind of a Nazi like that. The way I roll.
Plug it in when it's running. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. Well, because it automatically says focus your sound, it shuts off all sound. But in reality, it should be the sound.
I just wanted to.
So that's good. Because it is on the one. gotcha.
They have.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that we. And I could tell from the news coverage, not just church. Came from the TV. Not enough of this. I know you feel that way too, because you had the luck, you feel, I think I got from Trevor the other day on my little, he jumped on the video, I did on Monday. He said that somebody that big difference.
Yeah, so we hired that, that's.
Right, and I talked about it.
But I hired two out of law school, one didn't pass and the other one, a little irritating, he accepted the position, but then I think he was just using it as a backup because he found something better. And so then he accepted it and then he wasn't coming, so that was just. But didn't let them. Yeah, always back. I didn't find that. So there has to be people like that. There has to be people like that, but I've not had any applicants since far as came, which was kind of a kick in my gut, because I was really kind of.
Well, Matt knows his way around.
Yes, he's experienced, he can fit in.
Done all his job right.
Yes. So that was a really helpful and we can do it in the office. I'm glad that it's part of our office, but again, I just disappointed that no applicants, not even bad applicants. So, not that I would want to under bad applicants, but I haven't seen, so I don't know what why that is. But the good thing is, well, I had an intern over the summer. She is a student at USD. We have another USD student intern in the summer again. And the intern over the summer, she's applied to the office next year. And so that's nice that kind of.
Yes, I know you weren't part of this, but the USD is very interested in the criminal justice practice. And they would try to replicate it down here, so they're very interested in trying to create a presence.
I tried to bring the intern down for the year for the second semester. And I actually offered one of the applicants for a summer internship to come and do it during the second half. But he turned it down because he couldn't fit into every schedule. But it's something I consider.
And we all have to be a bit more creative now, and maybe stick our noses in places we haven't been before. Yeah, well, good luck. I realize it's just like an ongoing regular challenge. Back here. Kid, Silver.
She might be in.
Okay, yeah. You're out here coming. Guys, the beds tend to, well, I know in the probation department, they push you out. You get to a point, it's, hey, you're retired. And that's the way I understand it. They don't like this shape. Just different. Yeah, we stay forever. It's different. You know, he's got somebody coming in, he'd say good quiet. We'll try to knock out at least one if we can. Get done, we can get done. Well, Carol's got me, I'm in good shape because I've got gummy bears. Carol gave me a bucket of gummy bears. Perfect. Get a new meeting. But have them get right there. Not just a liability. Here. Second, not next week, the week after. Which at the same time, I mean, Plymouth County and I had a robbery and a felony eluding scheduled up there that have to be tried. One of them has to be tried. Because they're 90 days being tried. I don't want to make it too bad. 2 days on. Well, we did one of them. They get out of here, don't share. People, I tell everybody, when I do this. She won't get it if you don't do that. I said, and you none of your job. And you're right in your mouth, so what produce? I'm looking for it.
A binder. But Cheryl said you're looking for the.
Mr. Kelly had a hunt license, so I wanted to check. Where are you going? So anyway, I mean, I honestly understand. I appreciate you guys doing that. We just hang out. You got a good place to go.
I usually take November up to here. So.
Oh, good for you. Around here?
Yeah, just, Pisgah.
Pisgah. Always going to build her up and keep on trucking cafe. That dates me, let me tell you. That's not everybody knows what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah, nice. We got, I heard that CW call, we got us, or whether it's.
Yeah, maybe.
Those are, you know, everybody used to CB radio, those are. Crazy stuff, well, that's good, though. Yeah. Wonderful. You can't shoot straight. Well, what the hell, sometimes just being out there. Right. Getting outdoors is probably where they're good. You'll take your nap and back with you, go under your tree. I got a hat. What for you? You also remember Happened to me twice. And then they always say, well, fine for the first one, this is like months ago. And so I need to not have excuse. That's what I was planning. It's just a matter of common courtesy. Yeah, and managers. Yeah. They actually talk with people. Other than Lamar Saturday, I do. I'm not good. But if it's out, I'm not going to be the line. Every time I do it, within hours. I was like, the same point, it says it's. You want us to call you that? Yes. Then they don't. Yeah. It's that way. If I understand.
We can come in.
One more witness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, I've never been good at juggling. I mean, juggle.
Yeah.
I mean, in real life. So this stuff that's happened that 2 weeks in, or second week in November.
Oh, yeah, they called me.
But also, yeah, because I've been.
Queen of juggling.
Reschedule. And then I scheduled on some, I told him I could do it on the 10th, and then I realized that's a holiday.
Yeah, Chris isn't gonna send anything past 2:30 in Plymouth on that day, so,
It says there were a couple of things that said, I don't have a choice. You
Yeah.
just have to deal with it.
so you should be good to go
And
on
I
that
think
day.
there's only 2 cases now. I sent you, everybody had a chance to see, forward to Darren's email to you.
Okay, I saw you email me. I haven't looked at it yet. So is,
The first and the second one are still up.
Okay.
So the Malik or whatever his name is, the one they think.
okay,
And the second one's wrong. That's gonna pop around. So you might need to check and see if we have potential coverage.
Okay.
So I don't think it's too complicated, so. It's not that I don't want to do it, I just.
are you talking about for the trial or for the pre-trials on Friday?
I'm open to it. I can deal with it. We'll figure out which one's gonna go.
Okay.
And then, but whether or not this civil and the criminal trial that are set the next week, that Doe versus Arrow, whatever it is, the civil case here.
I think that's gonna go.
Huh?
I think-
I think it's gonna.
Yeah.
And I think it will actually go longer than a spill over a day or two into the second.
Okay.
There are lots of witnesses, lots of people from out of town and that kind of thing, so coordination.
Yeah.
And I know, it reminds me that the chief justice, we used to have to put those sort of on the back. This case has been on file for, I think,
3 years, yeah, I looked at it the other day.
If I can, I'd like to get it just for
Okay.
their sake and, it includes a wrongful death case. If this was just a contract. There's a clear, it's gonna be complicated. And I don't look forward to it, but I would think I should. I mean, I'd rather not. I hate to have that. I hate to have to walk in and have to try that.
Yeah, it looks pretty complicated. They're filing a
It's
bunch of
complicated
stuff.
enough, and the issue. Frankly, it's like a products liability case rolled into a personal injury case. And I've been doing this, 20 years and I've never had one like that. So I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, I'm not saying anybody's any better suited. I just have lived with it long enough. I probably should be.
Try it. Alrighty,
So see what you can do.
I will.
Work your magic.
I will. I'll pull up my wand.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is he here then? Oh, okay, all right. Let's go ahead and get the defendant back in here. So we can probably just do this one on the other.
I heard that movie.
No, I learned my downfall.
I have way more than that. Jay. Yeah, okay, okay. That's okay. We don't, I mean, if you're busy, we don't have to do it now. We can do it when we're done. I just wanted the physical ones that I know I can't reproduce. Oh, so. That's fine. Thank you.
But if you just keep your head up, we're ready to go. All right, I think we have one more witness we're going to be able to get done today. So Mr. Loomis, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Officer Christopher Thomas.
Go ahead and have a seat, adjust your chair as you need it, and then get yourself a little closer to the microphone and we'll be in good shape. All right, and then I'll have you raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in this matter?
Yes, I do.
Okay, fine. Now, why don't you go ahead for the sake of our record and state your full name?
My name is Christopher Thomas.
Mr. Loomis, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer Thomas. Where is it that you're employed?
I'm employed with the Sioux City Police Department of the city of Sioux City.
And how long have you been an officer with the Sioux City Police Department?
I've been an officer with the department about 10 years.
Are you a certified peace officer here in the state of Iowa?
Yes, I am.
What's your current assignment with the police department?
My current assignment right now is the Special Investigations Unit.
And how long have you been with that particular unit?
I've been with that unit roughly 2 years.
And were you in that unit back on February 24, 2023?
Yes, I was.
Now, on that particular night, were you called in to assist with an investigation into a stabbing that took place or a stabbing that was called in at 414 11th Street, apartment number 6?
Yes, I was.
Now, your involvement in that particular investigation, did that focus on the execution of the search warrant of that particular residence?
Yes, it did.
And did you assist with the execution of that search warrant?
I did.
Was that the extent of your involvement into this case, participation
Yes, it was.
in that search warrant?
Yes, it was.
Can you describe the layout of this apartment when you got there to assist with that execution of the search warrant?
The layout of the apartment was a fairly small apartment. There's really only two or three adjacent rooms on the, what I call the main living area. When you walk into the front door, just off to the right-hand side, there's a very small bathroom. Off to your left-hand side, there's a decently sized closet, which I would say is attached to what we identified as the living room. And then just in the back right corner off of the living room, there's a small little hallway kitchen.
Now, walk the jury through the process of executing a search warrant. When we talk about that, can you kind of familiarize the jury with what that process is from the perspective of a law enforcement agency when they go to execute search warrants? What is done? How is it done?
When we go to execute a search warrant on residences or really anything of that sort, the first thing we do is make sure the residence is clear. We don't do any searches until a search warrant's actually obtained, signed from a judge. Once that is done, we enter and clear the residence, making sure nobody's hiding or anything of that sort to prevent destruction of evidence or any safety concerns. We also have our crime scene investigators go into the residence, and before anything's manipulated in the apartment or the house or whatever we're doing a search warrant on, we document what we observe with general photographs of everything.
And then we initiate our search on the subject of the search and go from there.
Now, in this particular case, were there multiple officers involved in the execution of this search warrant?
Yes, there were.
And at the time that it was executed, was the residence, had the residence been cleared at that point?
Yes, it had.
And was it secured back up before making reentry after the search warrant was obtained?
Yes, it was.
And so specifically when entry is made into this particular apartment for that search warrant, what was your specific role during the portion of the search warrant?
My specific role in the search warrant was directing my search to be basically the back left corner of what I would call the living room.
And that again, that's the main area or the one living space in that apartment?
That is correct.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Officer Thomas, I'm gonna hand you two photographs, State's Exhibit 66 and State's Exhibit number 67. You recognize State's Exhibit 66 and 67?
Yes, I do.
And what is documented in those two exhibits?
In 66, there's a gray colored purse, which was positioned on the couch in the living room. 67 is after I executed a search of the purse on the couch. I located a larger style knife, which was in a leather sheath.
And were those seized as part of the process of executing the search warrant and collecting things during that search warrant?
Yes, they were.
State would offer State's Exhibit 66, 67.
Any objection to 66 and 67?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, they are each admitted. Yep, I've done it. I think we're just waiting here. Hopefully it's just a matter of time. Are you on Elmo? I'm sorry.
I am, Judge.
That's where I made the mistake. I apologize. It is a matter of time until I get it figured out. That's the problem. Okay.
Officer Thomas, showing you State's Exhibit number 66. And the gray purse that you mentioned in your testimony, that's on the couch that we see here.
Yes,
Now, when you're executing the search warrant, are you basically just searching the entire apartment for things of relevance to the investigation that's being conducted?
yes, things that are within the scope of the search warrant.
And is that what you did here?
Yes, I did.
And so as part of that, you located the purse and looked inside the purse. And I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 67. Now, is that the knife that you located inside that purse?
Yes, it is.
And was that seized as part of the investigation and as part of the execution of this search warrant?
Yes, it was.
And essentially, because this was a stabbing situation, knives were part of that search warrant to be looked for and collected.
That is correct.
And so all those types of things would have been collected from the residents.
Yes.
And your State's Exhibit number 25. You recognize State's Exhibit number 25?
Yes, I do.
What is State's Exhibit 25?
State, or this is the knife that is depicted in Exhibit 66 or 67.
So State's Exhibit 67 shows the photograph of the knife, or the knife. And State's Exhibit 25 is that knife?
Yes,
The state would offer State's Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection to that, Your Honor.
25 is admitted.
Going to jury states exhibit number 25. Now in your search of the living room, did you also locate a brown coat of interest to the investigation?
Yes, I did.
And was that coat seized and collected pursuant to that search warrant?
Yes, it was.
I'm gonna hand you two more photographs. States exhibit 69, 70. You recognize those two, what's depicted in those two photographs?
Yes, I do.
And what is shown in those two photographs?
These photographs are two coats that I located in the back corner of the living room.
States exhibit number 69.
The objection to the admission of 69 or 70, just to do it
Oh,
in the
sorry.
proper order?
No objection.
Okay, so 69 and 70 are admitted.
States exhibit number 69. States exhibit number 70. And those were codes that were found inside the apartment, Officer Thomas?
Yes, they were.
Now focus your attention on states exhibit number 69. Do you know whose coat this is in states exhibit number 69?
No, I do not.
What a note did you find on this particular code in terms of why it was collected pursuant to that search warrant?
I collected this coat because when I found it, I noticed there was a red stain on the coat, which to me appeared consistent with blood.
I zoomed in on states exhibit number 69. That red stain that you're referring to, is that what I'm pointing to right now, Officer Thomas?
Yes, it is.
So that was the reason why that particular coat was collected.
That is correct.
But again, you don't know whose coat this was.
No, I do not.
Did you search in any other areas of that apartment, Officer Thomas?
I had a brief participation in searching the bathroom of the apartment.
And did you find anything within the bathroom during your portion of the search in the bathroom?
No, I did not.
How big is the bathroom area of this apartment?
It's fairly small.
Consistent with the entire apartment itself?
That is correct.
Beyond locating the knife that we see in States Exhibit 25 and the coat that was collected in States Exhibit number 69, did you find anything else of note relevant to the investigation into this particular case?
In the corner of the living room I was searching, I did locate a black touchscreen cell phone. I seized that as evidence as well.
You don't know what, if any, involvement that phone has with this investigation, do you?
No, I do not.
Was that the extent of your involvement then into the execution of this search warrant at 414 11th Street, apartment number 6?
Yes, it was.
And just to be clear, when that search warrant was executed on the apartment, that was done on February 24th, that same night, is that right?
Early morning of the 25th, yes.
So early morning of February 25th.
That is correct.
And I should ask Officer Thomas, before you and the other officers went in to begin searching, did an ID person come in and photograph how the apartment appeared prior to you and the other officers looking into the apartment?
Yes, they did.
So they documented how everything looked prior to you looking through things and finding things and collecting things.
Yes, they did.
Thank you, Officer Thomas. The state has no further questions for this witness.
Cross-examination.
No question, John.
All right, officer, you're excused. Thank you very much. And that does then, I believe, conclude our evidence for today, and you're gonna get out early. It's like getting out early for recess, those kinds of things. So, I think we got through quite a few witnesses today. That's really important. And we thought we might be able to get a few more, but sometimes that's how it works. So keep in mind the admonition I've previously given you, and we'll be back to start like we did this morning. You can be here by about 10 till 9. That should be workable, and meet Jill in the jury room. Don't come in here, just so we. You didn't, that's confusion. Don't worry about it. And I'm not upset about that at all. We just knew you didn't belong in here. So just come in there and we'll have you seated in there, and then we'll pull you in when we're ready. Okay? All right. All rise. The jury's excused for the day. Yeah, we'll get those picked up, so.
We'll take them off the jury room.
Anything else that we need to take up on the record this time? Okay, good. We'll just see you in the morning. Thanks, everyone. So, see, I think I'll just leave this. I'm just gonna restart your. Okay, I'll leave this up here for now. And I need. Yeah.